welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a slightly different video to the kinds of things that I've been putting on this channel so far. It's going to be more of a sit down video, and I'm going to try and keep myself from just blubbering on and on and on. It's really hard with a video like this because I could literally talk forever on this subject, but I will do my best. I apologize if it gets a little bit wordy or a little bit boring, but if you guys have any questions or anything at the end, please feel free to put them in the comment box below and I will try and answer them as soon as possible. So by the title of the video, you probably guessed this video is going to be about how James and I bought a property at a young age. I was actually 21 at the time and James was 22, and we were actually looking at buying a property 2 years prior to that. I was 19 at the time and James was 20, and we had basically everything in place to do it. It's just that shortly after that I found out I was pregnant with Heidi and we decided to put it on hold. You know, we had so many big things going on in our life at the moment that we just thought we would put the house buying off until things were sort of settled a little bit more. And so regardless of whether I was 19 or 21 at the time, it was still a pretty young age to be investing in property, and something which we worked particularly hard for. And I have had so many questions from you guys on this channel and on my daily vlogging channel in the past, wanting to know how we budgeted for and how we managed to buy our first home at a young age, particularly because by the time we did go and get a mortgage, I was no longer working. So that makes it a lot harder. And just being in this day and age where everything is so expensive, it's so hard to save, and property is so expensive. So it is really, really hard to get in the property market. And whatever advice I can give that might help you guys, I'm more than happy to give. Certainly things are different from country to country, depending on what sort of incentives and rules you guys have. So I'm just going to share our experience, and I hope that any advice that I give can help you guys along the way. But if you are from another country and you have managed to get yourself into your own property, please feel free to put your experience and how you did it down below as well. So if someone comes across that is from your country and they see how you did it, that might be able to help them out as well. Anyway, I can already tell that I'm getting a bit wordy with this, so I'm gonna jump straight into it. So like I said, I ended up being about 21 when we got our first home, and that's the home that we are in currently. We've been here for almost 4 years now, which is kind of scary because the time is passing really, really quickly. And at the time when we got our mortgage, we were actually only on the single income. James had recently got his job at the company that he's still working at now, and it was just in a sort of junior marketing assistant position, so it wasn't a hugely paying job. And he also worked a couple of hours a week at Nando's, which was like his high school job. So we were making an alright amount of money from what James was earning. It just wasn't a huge amount. It certainly wasn't 2 incomes worth of money, if you catch my drift. So naturally that did complicate the process in buying a home just a little bit, but we did manage to do it nonetheless. And so the first thing that was a huge contributor to being able to get into our first home is that we budgeted like crazy. I had a list of all of our expenses, and I overcompensated for things like electricity and gas and what else? Basically our utilities, just in case we got a bill that was slightly higher than what we expected, and that all went into a separate billing account. We then had a term deposit savings account, which I highly recommend if you are looking to buy your first property. It's a great way to save for your mortgage, because on the same day of every month, we had $1,000 come out of our account. And yes, that was really difficult for us to do because it meant that we lived off a very small amount of money, but we did it nonetheless because we knew that it wasn't forever and that doing that would really pay off in the end. So we had that $1,000 come out into our term deposit account. And what is awesome about term deposit accounts is that they make it really hard for you to touch that money. Like, you have to go in, both people on the account have to go in and actually sign for the money. So you're less tempted to dip into that money on impulse purchases, which was really good. We also had a high interest rate term deposit account, which was also really great because depending on how much money you have in there, you can actually make a bit of money back from the bank, because the bank pays you interest on whatever amount of money is in your account. So you're actually earning extra money by having that money in that account. Another thing that we did was any spare change around the house, like if I broke a note or whatever, I didn't keep that change in my purse. I would always gather it up, any change, like whether it was little tiny 5-cent pieces that I found in James's work pockets or whatever, I always collected, and periodically, I'd like to say it was every month, but it wasn't. It was just every now and then, I would take that to the bank and go and have that deposited into the account as well. And surprisingly, it made up for a lot of money. As well as that, I used to sell children's clothing on the side. I did not make much at all off that, but when I did, I always put that into the account as well. And when I started earning a little bit of money off my YouTube videos as well, once again, I'm talking like, it was like $50 every 2 months, I would put that into the account as well. So every tiny little bit of money went straight back into that account, and we lived off, I think it was something like $100 a week for anything that wasn't bills. Like, I made most of Heidi's clothes, but you know, just if we wanted to do a treat or something, we used that money, and it was such a small amount. But we made it work, and it wasn't that hard looking back on it. It was a little bit stressful, but remembering that goal that we had of getting into our home is what motivated us to keep pushing through. The other thing that we did when we got married is we had a wishing well. So rather than having a gift registry and asking our guests to give us things like toasters or kettles, stuff that we already had living together and stuff that a lot of couples usually have these days, now that it's less common to move in together after you get married, we asked people to, if they wanted to of course, donate money to a wishing well. And so whatever money was gifted to us at our wedding in our wishing well, we put back onto our home savings as well, which I feel is like a pretty good way to spend wishing well money. It's setting you up for your future. Now, even though we were quite happy to live like that, we were still seen as a risk by the banks, because when they see a young family on one income with a child, that does look a little bit risque to them. They don't want to lend us money to buy a house and then have something go wrong, have us fall on hard times, and then have to sell that house so they can get their money back. That's like a worst case scenario thing. And banks are really careful about it these days to protect themselves and to protect you as a customer as well. So we had to do whatever we could to show them how non-risky we were, if that makes any sense. So what we did there was we calculated what we would be comfortable with spending on mortgage repayments, which at the time was about $400 per week. And then we went and rented a property for $400 a week, which was a lot more than what we were spending previously on our rent. But we did that to show that we could make consistent rental payments on the same date of every month. And banks love that. When they can see that you're making a payment without fail, same day every week, month, or whatever, they love being able to see that consistency. They do still have to follow by certain rules. So if you're, you know, renting out a place that's $1,000 a month, but the bank deems you only eligible to make mortgage repayments of $400 a month, then they're probably not going to do that. But if it's the difference of about $50 to $100, they're generally quite happy to be a bit flexible with that. So that's another good tip to keep in mind. So one thing that we didn't do back then that I sort of wish we did looking back is speak to a mortgage broker. And that's something that we've recently done now that we're looking at putting this property on the market and building our next home, is speak to a mortgage broker. And I had no idea just how valuable speaking to someone could be. They're different to a financial advisor in that you often don't have to pay for your consultations, because a mortgage broker is someone who can look at your financial situation and has the knowledge to give you some pretty good advice on where to go. And then later down the track, if you use them to help source a good mortgage that's the right fit for your family, then that's when they get paid through the bank. So generally those first consultations and setting up a good plan is totally free. So I would suggest to do some shopping around, you know, speak to people you know about, brokers that they might have seen and ones that give out good advice, and see what you can find, because we've found already that the one we've been speaking to has been so helpful. I mean, we already had a pretty good plan in place as to how we were going to reach for our next home, but just to have that professional opinion and to confirm that everything that we were doing was on track, and then throw a few other ideas and things in there in the process, was really great. So that is definitely something that I would consider to be doing when you are looking for your first home as well. So part and parcel with speaking to a professional is that they might be able to help you with any local or government schemes and incentives that might be able to give you that extra boost. I know in Australia we have something called the First Homeowner Builder Grant, or maybe it's not just a building grant anymore. When we bought our home, we were not able to access the funding because we were not building this house. However, people who were building their first home were actually able to access $15,000 from the government in order to do so, and just recently that sum has gone up to $20,000, which it really helps when you're trying to scramble together a 20% home deposit. So I would look into things like that, and I'm sure that a mortgage broker would be more than able to help you with that as well. As well as that, some banks are now only requiring like a 10% deposit or a 15% deposit because 20% is such a huge sum and it is so hard to get there. Now my next tip is for when you are actually able to get the mortgage. This is something we did. Try and get the minimum amount that you can borrow. I know that it's really tempting to go for the higher amount because you want to be able to get a home that you're really proud of and you love and you've got your dream home, and I totally get that because I was very much in that position. But if you sort of let go of that a little bit and just think, this is our first home, it's not forever, it's only a couple of years, then you'll find that you might actually put yourself in a much better financial position. So for example, we were really fortunate with this house. We stalked the market when we were approved for our finance and looked around at everything. We looked at lots of different areas and researched the development in all of the areas, because that makes a huge difference. When you're moving into a suburb that doesn't have too much development but has a lot of development planned, then that means that your home has a lot of potential to increase in value over the years. Another thing about this home in particular is that the people who owned it prior to us had actually had a bit of a nasty divorce and really wanted to just get out. Apparently, we only learned this as we were doing this, when people are getting divorced, it's a really good time to jump on their properties because they're really motivated to just sell their assets, split the profits, and go their separate ways. And that is obviously what we found in this house. The home itself is a 4-bedroom plus study, which is great because the study room, this room, can be used as a 5th bedroom, which increases the value as well. And it had been renovated fully in the last year prior to us buying it. So we were lucky. We moved into a nice looking home, but it wasn't the huge big dream home that we had always planned. It was just something a lot smaller, which meant that we can make extra payments on our mortgage and get those interest rates down. So now we're in a position, and I don't like talking about our exact financial position too much, but we are now in a position about 4 years later where our home is worth about $100,000 plus more than what we're owing on it, which means that when we do sell it, that's our money to put towards our next home deposit. And we will be able to afford to have the bigger home or the better piece of land or the luxury inclusion. So it's hard at the time to opt for less, but it really pays off, and the time passes so quickly. When we bought the home as a 3-year home, I thought, wow, like 3 years is a long time. We're going to be in this house forever. And I feel like I've just blinked and it's already 4 years later, and I can't get past that. So it does go really quickly. It pays to take the lesser amount when you do get that mortgage and make extra payments on that property. So a few years down the track, you will be able to sell up and be able to keep that equity. Or you might even find that you're in the position where you can go to a bank and take out another mortgage and actually keep your first property to rent out, which is the ultimate goal, to have multiple properties. Having said that, we're not really going about it that way this time round. We're going to buy our next house and then buy an investment property, but ideally you would keep that first property as well. So far that is pretty much all of the tips that I can give you guys on this. We are, as I said, looking towards selling this home very soon and building our next one, and I'm so excited to take you guys on that journey. I think it's going to be a really fun one, and as soon as we have everything locked in place, then you guys will be the first to know. So be sure to keep your eyes peeled for that news. And of course, if you aren't already subscribed to this channel and you like these kinds of videos, then make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you're on Snapchat, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram or Facebook, I'll have all of the links to my accounts down in the description box below, and make sure to hit me up in the comments section. I want to hear you guys' experiences with buying properties or looking to buy properties. I want to hear all about where you guys are on that, and other than that, I will see you guys all next time. Bye.